top of folks' heads that they want to bring forward. We could check up on our project board. That's probably a good idea. But outside of like our project board or like things going on in K-org, is there specific things that folks want to bring forward?
The board was the thing I wanted to talk about.
I guess I have a random thing, but I don't know that I care enough about it to actually do something about it. But I'll just mention a couple days ago, maybe a week ago, I saw something in the SIG release channel where Jorge was like, hey, be careful with the GitHub teams that you ping. Some of them may not ping the people you expect. And then he pointed to the SIG scalability teams, which don't have, so like, you know, SIG scalability test failures, SIG scalability API review. They don't have any of the chairs of SIG scalability on them. In fact, many of them are just me, Bob Weiss, and Joe Beta. Seems a little out of date. I don't know that it's necessarily this team's job to go around and police the stuff like that, but I think there are a lot of stale teams out there.
It'd probably be good to mention the chairs, TLs, and then like bring it up for the next meeting there. I think, I don't remember when that's scheduled.
I can share my screen?
Yes, you are.
All right. So this is our board, making it bigger. You have a card for this from June 2018.
Amazing.
Yep. Because this is where we like reviewed the team structure, and the team structure at the time was like large and very ineffective. And I made a proposal for like what as far as like the standardized team should be.
Right.
Basically SIG leads, SIG PR views. And then it kind of has just gone stale. And it did also have to do with like, you know, the kind of intersecting discussion a couple of different times that we've had as far as like owners aliases files.
Yes.
I think this is a case where like the teams as they are so ineffective that it's kind of just holding us back. Swapping out like owners aliases for teams would be something good to do, but I just don't think that we have the bandwidth as far as tooling coding at this exact moment to do that. To just say, instead of an aliases file, reference GitHub teams here.
Right.
So I think because we've got automated team management through Parabolos, and like SIG leads can manage their teams through the K-org repo, I think at this point we should just move ahead with this and like say that, you know, I'm open to suggestions as far as like the proposal, as you know, which other teams that we should maybe keep and that kind of stuff, but just otherwise like set this up and, you know, comment out to the community and roll this out, because then there aren't like, you know, test failures teams that are just stale and not used and not updated by the SIG. Because at least in this case, we could say like, you know, we, you know, combine whoever's in the existing lists up into the SIG foo.
Mm-hmm.
And then SIG leads, we could definitely uptake because we have a source of truth. And then PR reviews. I don't
So I
know
hear
what
that.
we would do as far as default
I
in
hear
there.
that, but I don't know how SIGs are actually using their teams. Like, I don't know. There could be some people who are actually using these things today. So the counter argument would be, we have strongly suggested that SIGs are in charge of making sure their other communications channels are set up appropriately, and making sure their teams are set up appropriately could be another thing that we suggest they set up. Like, I hear what you're saying. We have the power to automate all of this in one place and just do it. But so do they.
At least from our perspective, you know, here's maybe a slightly different approach. Would be, so we do this, but we do it like, we just turn through and do it like one PR per SIG. So instead of like trying to get community-wide consensus on this, we just do it and assign it to review of the leads. And it's like, okay, you want to update it yourself to make it different than, you know, as far as like the membership and that kind of stuff, or you want to keep teams around, like, do it yourself. But like, otherwise, hey, here's a PR ready to go, and all you really have to do to acknowledge it is LGTM.
But how would we decide who goes in the PR reviews team?
There's a PR reviews team existing for all of the SIGs right now. So I would say, like, keep the membership what it is.
And then if they have changes, they can propose those changes on the PR review.
Yeah.
I guess my other question is whether you are proposing that we force a nested team structure. I don't know of anybody that uses nested teams today, but I may be wrong.
I think there are some nested teams. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't use nested teams, but I'm open to, like, I'm open to thoughts.
My slight little paranoia is I don't know if Parabola supports them or not. That's all.
I know it does because I wrote that code.
I think ContribEx and Release use nested teams, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, contributor experience does.
Well, like I said, I have no real strong opinion. I also don't know that I have the bandwidth to offer going off and rallying for this, but I'm not opposed to moving forward with it.
At least if we, the idea is like, if we as a sub-project make a decision, even if it's not an urgent priority for us to drive, it's like there and the decision is made that like, this is like at least what the plan is. And then as far as like cutting the PRs, like if we cut them as individual ones, that then like all the SIG needs to do is LGTM it to get it in, then it makes, it's one of those things. It's like the other things that Contributor Experience does, like, hey, SIG leads, can you go and update your Zoom settings for this? And then they just never do, and then we can't get conformance. If we make it like super easy for the chairs of these SIGs to go like, okay, here's the administrivia thing. Hey, maybe you didn't even know that what these teams look like. When was the last time you PR'd anything into K-org? At least this will get you into the right team structure, and then you can go and update the membership of the teams from there.
Okay.
+1 to it, and I can help out.
Yep. Same. We can pretty much create a like punch list and just go down the list of SIGs.
Okay.
So
Um,
do you think this is something we can do in the 119 cycle?
I'd say likely, because as far as like cutting the PRs and that kind of stuff, I would think total maybe like a couple hours worth of work, and then it's just the driving of, you know, hey, ping the SIG chairs. I combined ping and SIG into pig. That does not work. Ping the SIG chairs to just LGTM and PR. Or like, hey, suggest some brief changes. But if you want like major changes, let's get this in first. And then you can figure out, you know, auditing your list from there. Please take this on and go audit your list from there. But then we shrink down from like the 7 or whatever teams it is per SIG into 3, and they're manageable, and like, here's where you go to actually do them. Because I think we have them all split out into files already right now with owners. So it's like, it's delegated. You can go update your teams as you see fit.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Making a note for myself to actually write an update to this issue.
Okay. Do you want to toss in the milestone then?
Do we have a?
Yep. I have created milestones up through the end of the year. This is one of the things like I wanted to talk about with the board is I'm trying to get an idea of what all the subprojects and everything has been working on.
Mhm.
So I created milestones, and ideally if people like either put what they're planning to be worked on in, you know, I think for this one it's sorted backlog or in progress. And then tying it to a milestone that will just make it much easier to sort of see what's going on. The other thing I would personally like to do over the 119 cycle is the audit and remove stale org members. That's in the like center of the screen right there. I can share a link to a sheet that I made in. Actually, I think I don't know if I did already. I've shared it a couple people individually. Of it took the entire, like I dumped the GitHub audit log of when they joined and compared it to our current org member list, and we have like 330 people that have not done anything in a year and a half. And I think close to most of them also haven't done anything since like the 1.10 release.
Is the source of truth the audit log or like dev stats or?
So I got their join date from the audit log. Just so, like, it's kind of hard to compare, you know, hey, this person wasn't around for the 1.10 release. So I got that from that. And then the other info I got from dev stats. Here, I'll just get the spreadsheet up real quick.
I reshared it in the GitHub management channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
I pasted it to our Zoom chat here, so no need to find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is folks activity based off of, so joined is from the audit log, but then the activity in each of the cycles has to is coming from dev stats.
Yep. The dev stats doesn't have it by like month or year. It's just easiest to do it by release cycle. And the
So you've got 9 cycles here.
Yeah, the 118 was like accurate up to I forget the date that I actually made the sheet, but like now that 118 is out the door, this should actually be more accurate. I didn't want to move forward with it until 118 was actually completed.
1 to 10 was the release of the Q1 2018, so it was years back.
Yep.
And if the person was
Okay.
inactive for 2 years, so that's probably a good reason for us to investigate if it's worth removing it.
Yep.
Yeah, if somebody's been inactive for 2 years and doesn't have a dev stats thing, which like dev stats isn't perfect. It doesn't track like PR reviews and that kind of stuff in the way that we expect, but it does track like, emoji reactions or any comment on anything.
Yeah.
So using it as a source for an activity, I think is fair. And if you haven't had any activity, then you don't necessarily need the permission set of.
So I double checked my remove criteria. I did it after, so any activity after the 111 release. So I do have it going back to 110. I was the remove column is based off essentially if they've had no activity in 1.12 through 1.18.
Okay, so that's 18 months then instead of 2 years?
Yeah, it's a year and a half.
Gotcha.
We can,
which I also think is fair. Like even I could be convinced of the argument if you haven't been around in 12 months, but 18 seems fair. I don't know. Does anybody have any thoughts on the actual benchmark? Strong feelings one way or another.
I did also have another idea on this too. If they are removed for inactivity, we could also make it so that way if they want to reapply, they don't necessarily need to get sponsors again. They just have to, meet our other criteria of essentially proving that they're active. We know you were trustworthy once before. You got the sponsors before. That might at least, I won't say ease the pain is the wrong like wording or phrase, but like, makes it easier for them to come back if they do become active again.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Like my mind goes like, on the one hand, we have the bar for membership really low to begin with. And like, if you are genuinely going to be active, finding 2 people from 2 different companies to sponsor you should be really, really easy. Yeah. And not being an org member doesn't mean you can't contribute. Like you can still open PRs and that kind of stuff. Like if it's, I need to open a single PR or something like that, nothing's stopping you from doing that one way or another. But I'm also like, I guess I could also be convinced of just like, yeah, it's just like a nicety thing that chances are if you're inactive, like putting something like that isn't going to all of a sudden make you active again.
Yeah.
And if it does, great. Like if folks are inactive and then get pinged and are like, oh, I really want to get into that Kubernetes thing again. Great. Please come back. PR's welcome.
The other thing is like this, out of those 330 people, 126 of them are currently in owners files.
Have you counted how many owners are subject to removal?
I didn't hear you.
How many people in the owners files are subject to removal? So how many people in the owners files are inactive for 2 years?
Oh, that's the 126 number. At least like use in owners files. 120, yeah. That isn't necessarily 100% accurate. That's just using the like
The search tool.
Yeah, the search tool. So that's still a pretty,
So, sorry that we're picking on you, Aid Robinson.
yeah.
But yeah, there's a bunch of owners entries here that will need to be cleaned up.
But at least
these are vendors, client
if they are at least out of the org, they won't be assigned anymore.
Yeah.
Even if they're in the owner's file.
But I think Ehor's point is valid. I think that it might cause some problems with Prow. I don't know. I'm trying to think here.
Shouldn't from an assigning or a blunderbuss or an approve perspective, because it won't get suggested if you're not part of the org. It will throw, so the next time somebody touches that owner's file,
right, verify
it will throw that the invalid owners plugin will complain and say like, hey, you're touching this owner's file and there's an invalid owner in it.
Okay.
Yeah, so probably we have to consider removing people from the owner's file together with removing from the organization. And that's pretty obvious because it's controversial if a person is an owner but not a member of the organization, and this person is not active.
That's happened a few times, especially with renames.
I think so that also, if we like, because we have the emeritus process now.
Yeah.
If we remove them from the org for inactivity, and we have this guideline that you're getting removed from the org for inactivity, then I think it should be uncontroversial to just do, okay, one PR, we're removing all of the owners and moving them to emeritus. Like if they're approvers, they get moved to emeritus. If they're reviewers, they just get stripped out of the file.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Level approval.
Okay.
I see one chair in here that's slated for removal. Forward.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Is it?
I have an idea. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah, I think this looks like it was a lot of work. I'm super appreciative that you've taken the time to do this. There is a part of me that says, oh my God, this is so much toil. I don't know that this sets a great example. But I also think it works. It's pretty common sense. And if this is the sort of thing that, this team wants to take on and do every quarter, I think that's the cadence that some other SIGs kind of go through and refresh their teams and their owners' files and stuff. It makes sense to me.
Yeah. It was actually like, for me, it was just a couple hours right before boarding a plane, so it wasn't too bad.
Awesome.
Well, the other thing is, if we get down to like 18 months, like I think the first time we did this, we did like the people who were extremely, extremely, extremely stale. If we get down to something like 18 months and we set that as a guideline, it's also possible for us to just automate this. Like, hey, like DevStats dump out a report of people who haven't been inactive in 18 months, and then it just gets like run through a script and everybody's stripped out of K-org.
Yeah, I think we should also review it once before like automatically removing folks. Because I went through this list and there are some folks who've done non-technical contributions, but they are slated for removal. But yeah, that's kind of like a nitpick.
So I guess, so philosophically, and this is maybe kind of like an open discussion, and like I'm curious to how people think about this. So Kubernetes org membership. There's two ways that I've heard people look at Kubernetes org membership. Number one, they look at it as a permission set. You're in the org, which means that the bot trusts you for PRs, and you're able to do certain privileged bot commands that we don't let the general public have access to. We're now at a point where we can assign anyone, as long like anyone can self-assign themselves as long as they comment on the issue. So really, it's like trust for bot testing, and it's certain privilege level commands. Oh, and being in GitHub teams as a third one. Like you can be a member of GitHub teams. It's like on the one hand, it's permission set. On the other hand, people look at being a member of the org and having the little Kubernetes logo on their GitHub profile as like a badge of honor, and you know, something that should be strived for, and you know, whether or not they're active and that kind of stuff, that it's important to them. And I get that, and I can understand that, but at the same time, I'm curious about how we look at it, because then we start, if it's a permission set strictly, then yeah, we can do data-driven stuff, and then it takes like the human piece out of it, that we don't need to like feel bad that people are inactive because we're just stripping back permissions that people don't need.
There was one idea, I think George brought up when I was talking to him about this before. This could also cause other problems, but it'd be to set up essentially like an emeritus org that people are just moved to automatically. But that then, you know, they get the join request or whatever, and as we've seen, a lot of people don't actually accept the join request. That'd be the way to still get them a little badge that still is associated with the Kubernetes org.
Yeah. So it's not a bad idea.
So
I don't know.
My other random thought is, I appreciate that I have 3 of the 4 leads and chairs of contributor experience here, but I wonder if this is a conversation that should be had amongst a wider audience before moving forward.
So, you know, the current structure of things, we as the GitHub administration subproject, basically this is the discussion forum, and this is why also this forum is open. And I talked about in the ContribEx meeting yesterday, right, that this is an open forum. People can join and talk about things. Kubernetes retired org. This is an open discussion forum for the subproject. Right. So we kind of get like, you know, first discussion. This is kind of like the little subcommittee that we're talking about the issue and bringing it up initially.
This is initializing
if we have thoughts to bring forward to like the bigger ContribEx, I think we can. But I think we basically get like this forum is the first crack at it. So if there's thoughts here, we can bring that up. But then like if there's a topic like this, I would agree. If we have like a proposal, we probably shouldn't just act on it from a philosophical standpoint, right? Okay. If we're defining what does Kubernetes org membership mean, I agree that that's probably a bit of a bigger discussion, but I think it's fine that we're having a first crack at the discussion.
Okay, great. Sounds good to me. I vote y'all move forward to a larger forum with the 1.5-year proposal that with what I see on the sheet right now. There are some names I will be sad to see go, but they haven't been active for a while.
Do we? Well, and I guess this is the thing. Like I'm specifically, I'll put the question out there. Does anybody have thoughts and feelings about non-technical contributions, like contributions that are not on GitHub? I should say that. because there's plenty of GitHub contributions that are non-technical as well. But like off GitHub contributions, contributing to Kubernetes org membership, do we consider those? Are those something, or like how do we quantify those, even though it's a permission set? And I have another follow-up question, but I'll put that one out there first. Like, how do people feel about that? Like non-GitHub contributions qualifying you for GitHub org membership.
What are the examples of these contributions?
The events team. The one thing is, like, even in a lot of the non-code contributions, there's still a good chunk of them are still interacting with GitHub in some way.
Yes, yes, that's why I'm asking. So you're not required to write some code and submit PRs, but even if you add, for example, events team, so there are multiple conversations that are happening on GitHub, and people can expect at least some responses on the GitHub threads from you, some interactions with folks, and some ongoing conversations, and so on. So we can start probably with identifying these non-coding contributions and truly figure out if all of them are dependent on GitHub or not.
Also, I think a lot of the people that would potentially come up in the list for non-code contributions could be vetted pretty easily. So even if this isn't I don't think this should be 100% automated process. We at least have some sort of review over it, and can follow up on that.
I'd agree that there should be human review of this, no matter what. Like, I don't think it should be like 100% automated process. Like, there should be at least some human backstop in there to, like, even if it's an automated process to open up the PR, there's still a human that needs to, like, LGTM and approve it to get it actually into the KORG repo, and then Parabol's running on it. So I'm just noticing. So we're over time for today. As far as takeaways from this, the GitHub team structure, that's something that we can definitely move forward with, and we've agreed on. The Kubernetes org activity, like audit and removing folks, I think doing another round of that is something that we're all agreed to. Like, in principle, that we take that and we move forward with like the 18-month time horizon, and we bring that up to ContribEx, because both of these will need like consensus processes through ContribEx. So, but those at least we're going to move forward with. I don't think we're yet at a point where we're going to say, like, yes, let's routinely automate the 18-month removal yet. But I think after this round, I think that's probably like the next logical step that we start talking about, is like, how do we automate an 18-month removal and then have some sort of like human,
approval process,
like approval process for like, yes, this is what we want to do. Cool.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess my gut tells me, using that one XKCD comic, I question whether or not the time involved in trying to automate this is worth it. Like, maybe it is something you just do once a quarter, but.
Well, even automation from the point of like a script we run that does this.
Yep.
We don't necessarily need the joined, like going through the audit logs and stuff, but going like, hey, we were almost there actually at one point, because I'd asked Lucas to, hey, can you dump like a visual report from DevStats and be like, any people in this org membership list who are not active active, like you don't have a registered event for 18 months. Like I think Lucas can build that out in DevStats fairly easily. And then it would just be a report that we like, you know, dump to CSV or JSON or something like that and remove from KORG.
Yeah, this is pretty easy to script and put like, you know.
Okay. I had one last thing I wanted to just sync on while we're all here, which was moving things out of Kubernetes Incubator. I just want to make sure I've got current state right. The two autoscaler repos, SIG Autoscaling believes they do not own. That's right. And I think like you had chased down that maybe SIG Networking was going to talk about this, Bob. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yeah, I pinged Falcon and someone else that was in both owners files that's also in SIG Network. I'm totally blanking out. And they were going to revisit it to basically see if they want to take ownership of it, if it's still worthwhile sort of keeping that around.
Okay.
So.
And I feel like, I forget what the last forum was for discussion of this, but I still feel like SIG Cluster Lifecycle does not want to take on Kube AWS. So next step would be to take it to SIG Cloud Provider. Is that right?
Both of them said like they would begrudgingly take it.
Okay.
Neither of them actually want it, but they would take it.
Okay.
Well, I think at this point they just need to figure it out. Like, you know, rock, paper, scissors if you need to. Yeah. Decide if somebody's going to take it, if we're deciding we're going to keep it and keep it in the inside as opposed to like retire it and let the ecosystem take over.
Personally, I think it should just be retired. But
it sounds like it. Like it sounds like it's active. It sounds like there's like one maintainer that is keeping it alive, and it's important to like one person.
Yeah, there does seem to be a trickle of contributions, and it does seem like it's one person who's maintaining it. Okay. I just wanted to get on the same page with everybody about that.
Totally makes sense. Okay, last call. Great. Thanks, everyone. I'll see everyone on the GitHubs.
See ya.
Okay.
George is still streaming.